Welcome to the good, the bad, and the sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. So the next sequel that we're going to be covering is a fun one. It's cyborgs that are teachers. In Class of 1999, great cast. It has Tracy Lynn, Malcolm McDowell, Stacy Keach, former guest Patrick Kilpatrick in one of the main roles, and then in a small role, our buddy Lee Ehrenberg. And then the cast, John P. Ryan, Pam Grier, Joshua John Miller. Just this movie has so many people in it, and it's insane. Amazing special effects. And funny that I mentioned that is our guest is the special effects master and robotics. We talked about it all. Eric Allard. Eric was interesting. Usually people are like, hey, I want to get into film or TV, and here's my steps that I did right after high school, and then boom. Not to make those stories sound so general, but they're usually something like that. No, he joins the military, becomes a Green Beret, and then when he comes out, he has an inkling like, hey, I know I know bombs, I can maybe do in the special effects, but he had to work his way in. His father-in-law knew somebody that worked at Universal and woodworking and the mill, so he gets that job, but he knew he wanted to do special effects, and really cool about that. Him working on, Short Circuit and how that all came to be, and how a crazy story with Steven Spielberg. There's a bunch of the story throughout. Then I asked something at the end, and it actually blew my mind. So it's really neat. The Energizer Bunny commercials, FX2, and some really cool camera tricks that he did. Working on Sudden Impact, a sequel we covered a long time ago with Clint Eastwood. Go Ahead, Make My Day, being nominated for an Oscar for Stuart Little, and how that whole process works. Eric was a blast. You can check out his website. He said he's sort of retired, but you can tell he loves it. He has some great stories about his career, some really cool behind the scenes stories. His website is allfx.com. I'll put the link in the episode notes. Some really cool photos, him with Johnny Five, and really cool. That movie was just so important to me as a kid. I watched that movie so much, so it was really cool to be able to connect with Eric. And I reached out to him in May, and then he called me a month, 2 months ago, and it was cool because I actually forgot I sent it because I sent it on his website. So boom, so happy it worked out. Again, just before a little homework, housekeeping, however you want to put it, before I start the interview, if you're new here, please subscribe. If you're back, appreciate it. We love you guys. Make sure you share, subscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell everybody. We love talking to people about their careers, how they got started, some memorable moments along the way, and then we love, talking about the sequels. Me and Jamie have so much fun doing it. And Class of 1999, it's free on YouTube. So make sure you check it out for next week. But without further ado, here is Special Effects Master Eric Allard.
I always love to hear the journey for the first credit. Where did you grow up?
I was born in Syracuse, New York. My dad was a scientist, and he was a real smart guy, and he got pulled in a lot of different directions. At 13 months old, we moved to Palo Alto, California. And then from Palo Alto at 3, I lived in Phoenix, Arizona from age 3 to 9. My dad actually worked for Arnold Spielberg, Steven Spielberg's dad at General Electric. He designed the memory for the first computer ever used in the bank industry.
Really? I didn't know that about him.
Can you believe that? And then, so from 9 years on, I've been out here in Los Angeles in the Valley. Basically, I'm a Valley dude.
Okay, so when was it? Because we talked on the phone, you joined the military,
right? Out of high school, I went to the Army, and I was in Special Forces, Airborne Ranger qualified, 18th Airborne Corps Sniper Champion. Went on a couple missions in Panama. Was on 2 A teams. At 20 years old, I was a sergeant in the Green Beret demolition expert.
Jesus. Yeah. Did you always think that was something is that running your family, or did you know anybody in the military, or was it just I want to do this?
Fired from every gas station job I had, and I knew I had something more in me. and I had to get it together, and it worked. I mean, the Army, I owe everything to, really. But it was great.
So do you have any like inclination, like while you're there, of anything about working in special effects? Did you ever have any of that thought?
I always liked, the concept of, I mean, I remember the seven voyages of, that was like, that just got me, all the Harryhausen stuff and King Kong. And I liked that a lot. And when I got out of the Army, I actually got married, and my father-in-law uncle, or father-in-law's, I guess, brother-in-law, my father-in-law's brother-in-law, he worked at Universal, and I got to start there as a carpenter. And
okay.
But I knew I wanted to get into special effects because I had the Demolition background. I figured, they blow things up in the movies. I know how to blow things up,
Yeah.
And so I kept trying. I was at Universal working as a carpenter, and I worked in the mill. It was great education, like some real, they did some really neat mill work, like in terms of Victorian interiors with plinth blocks and crown moldings and all kinds of stuff. So, that was pretty good, but I wanted to get in special effects. And basically I kept trying to get in at Universal. I couldn't get in, and they said in the special effects department, we'd like to hire you, but, they don't want to let you go out of the mill, So I my boss, Roger Apperson, ran that part of Universal. I just said, I appreciate, the vote of confidence, but, this is kind of a career I want to do. It just didn't work out. I ended up leaving there. I had gotten in the union, and I took a call. It was the only union call I had ever taken, really, and up until fairly recently. I went to Fox and worked in the prop shop, and on my first break, and to me, prop shop, special effects, all the same. The prop shop's where you make the action props, the robots, the gizmos, So as soon as the first break came, I went down the special effects department. A gentleman named Paul Wurtzel ran it, and I had my resume and some pictures of what I had done, and I, gave him my pitch, and he said, well, we don't have anything right now, but we'll keep our eyes open. I went back to work, and Paul Wurtzel, by the way, when you see the picture of Marilyn Monroe, that it's a famous picture, she's holding her dress down like she walked over the subway vent. And
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, there's a picture in a Old Life magazine of Paul Wurtzel with the E-fan, looking up, holding this fan. That was Paul Wurtzel, but he was a great special effects man, practical effects. And a couple weeks later, he called me into his office and said, well, Danny Lee is looking for some people. It's not really special effects. They're just building robots and stuff. And I'm all like, what? Isn't that special effects? So I went to work for Danny Lee, and that really, he was kind of my first mentor who, taught me how to break down scripts and how to plan and budget special effects. And I was there for about, I think, 3 or 4 years.
Was that Tomorrow's Child? Is that it looks like your first credit?
It was actually at Fox. Tomorrow's Child.
Oh, okay.
Before I went to special effects, that was at Fox. It was, we were working in the prop shop. Mark Knoll and I worked on that together. Mark Noel, he's pretty much known now as the motion base guy. He has the big motion bases. All the pictures since the beginning of 6-DoF motion bases in our industry. Mark's done 90% of them.
Oh, wow.
He was a real talented fabricator. He worked with me on Short Circuit as well,
Oh, cool.
But yeah, so that's kind of how I got my start. I just, The Black Hole was the first real movie. I worked on special effects, and we were building Vincent and the other robot, and Maximilian, and the arms on the big Maximilian robot, and all that. So I worked on a Herbie Goes Bananas, where we made the car with the eyes and all of that stuff. Devil and Max Devlin. And one movie which was really fun was The Last Flight of Noah's Ark. We actually went out to.
Okay, I never heard of that one. I saw that. I see that on here.
Yeah, well, it's really cool. It's Elliot Gould, Genevieve Bissett, and
Nice.
Elliot Gould's trying to get away from a gambling debt out of Vegas, and he gets talked into flying a missionary with some animals to an island or to somewhere in Central America, and they end up having to make a getaway because the mob's coming to get them, and they take off, and they discover there's a couple of stowaways. One of them being Ricky Schroeder when he was 5 years old. He was one.
Oh my God!
I'm sorry, but I forget the actress's name. But so they're going and they're running out of fuel, and all of a sudden she moves her tape recorder off the dash of this B-29, and the compass like does a quarter turn. Oh my God! They start losing engine power, and they crash land on this island, this tropical island, and it turns out there's a couple of Japanese guys there that don't know the war's over. 50 years later, and
really, wow, that's pretty.
Eventually, they make friends, and the Japanese guys talk them into turning the boat up the plane, making a boat out of the plane. So we actually went and got 4 B-29s from China Lake, which is near here. It's a boneyard. And we sent 2 of them to the studio. We made process bodies where you cut them in half so you can shoot, interiors. And we made a square rigged sailboat out of one. We turned it upside down. We filled it half full of foam. We cut the wings off after the first engine nacelle, so it was kind of a catamaran. Put a sail on it, tiller and a keel, and it would do like 3 to 4 knots under its own power. It was in the ocean for like 8 weeks, and then part of the deal was the planes had to be destroyed after the movie was made. So they just brought this big, huge bulldozer with the bottom.
Oh man!
Thing. But that was pretty cool, and I got my start at Disney, and then I went on to work with Chuck Jasper, who was a sort of number one effects guy at the time on Ghostbusters, Sudden Impact.
Yeah, I've interviewed a few people with Ghostbusters, Steve Neal.
Oh yeah,
and Tim Lawrence.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and then it went on from there. I worked on Brainstorm, which was Douglas Trumbull directed Brainstorm with Natalie Wood and Christopher Walken. And Doug liked me as I kind of worked my way up. I ended up becoming his special effects supervisor for this new process he had called Show Scan. It's a 60 frames a second of 65 millimeter pulled 12 perfs sideways. So you can imagine you have a piece of film literally this big going 60 times a second.
Yeah.
It was huge. But it was, I did a little movie called Let's Go. I built a little robot named Pal for that. And the people at Short Circuit saw that and saw that I wasn't at the meeting when they went to meet with Doug, and they kind of came in the back door and asked me if I was connected at the hip. I said, no, I wasn't. I ended up getting the movie. So it was great. That was my first big, singular start of all effects company at the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's when you started the company? Did you already have it going? Or at that time you were like, let me start something?
After I finished the movie, I had the shops. When I got Short Circuit, I had like 14 weeks. Once we got approved, I had 14 weeks to build all the robots, and I didn't have any tools. I didn't have a shop. I had nothing. So I found a shop. I borrowed $30,000 from my father-in-law, and I bought a bunch of tools and just equipped it. And then we had 12 weeks left. And in 12 weeks, we built all the props for the Short Circuit. It was kind of cool because when I got the call, they said, well, are you connected at the hip over there? I said, no. And they said, well, we got the script Short Circuit. We'd like to send it to you. This was on a Friday at about noon. I said, yeah, you could drop it off over here. And they said, no, well, where do you live? We'll put it in your mailbox, So I got home that night, and I didn't even know how to use a word processor at that point. But I had my younger brother was with me, and I read the script, and I was like, oh my God. So I did a breakdown, as I always did, on a big yellow legal pad, and then I figured out all the elements that we would need for the movie. And it came down to 2, what you call superhero remote control robots. They're actually action props, that had 45 different axes from, the face all the way down with the hands with fingers. We called those superheroes. Then in addition to that, we had 5 heroes that had everything the superheroes had, but it didn't have articulated hands. It had wrists, but no hand motion. Then we had 7 stunt robots, which had all the same exterior appearance and chassis, but no motors in them. And as we needed to rig different ones for different things, where he falls off the truck, goes over the bridge, whatever, we would do that. And then we had 2 sets of insert arms, because if you're going to do a close-up of him picking up a Coke, you do the master, then you get the insert arm and just have it pick it up. And 3 hero heads, and all of this stuff, when I read the script, I came up with during this 2-day proposal I was doing. And I went through the script, and, as the script has a beginning, middle, and an end, so does most scenes, And so you'll usually shoot a master, then you'll go in for coverage, and then grab the inserts. And so I went through every scene in the movie, and I did a 2-letter designation for whether it was a superhero, a hero, a stunt bot, insert arms. Oh, we also had 3 puppets, 3 cable control puppets. And all of that stuff I put in there, and I did a budget, and I went to the meeting that next Monday. And I passed these things out, and they're sitting there looking at this stuff like, who is this guy?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I had it all there, and that's exactly what we did. What I came up with in those 2 days was exactly what we did. We didn't deviate from it. And John Badham I didn't know, but when I left the room, he said, "That's the guy that's going to build my robot." I didn't know. But it was great. John totally, he was just a great director. He understood the concept. He wanted to do as much live action as possible. We ended up doing it all live action. Really no visual effects to speak of. There might have been some matte paintings or a couple of things, I don't know.
Yeah.
But basically it was all, mechanical effects, and it was successful. Then we went on to do the second one. And
so did you have a lot of creative freedom when it came to making Johnny 5? Did they give you a storyboard of, hey, this is what we want him to look like, and then you were able to add any of your own flavor to it?
Yeah, it was more like I got together with Sid Mead, Philip Harrison, who was the production designer. John Badham and I met for the first time. Like I had that first meeting on a Monday. By Friday, the 4 of us were meeting in John Badham's office to decide what the robot would look like. And I'm sitting there, Sid Mead and Philip Harrison and I were talking a bit before John got there. And we heard John walking in the room, and he was talking to somebody. And just as he's walking in, he goes, "Okay, well, I got to get into this meeting." And I look, it was actually Doug Trumbull, the guy that I used to work for. And then John kind of closed the door to it. It was like Doug looked at me and went, it was perfect. We remained friends, after that. That was kind of a cool Hollywood moment for me. So we're at this table, and Philip Harrison sketching away, and Sid Mead, he's just epic, legendary futurist was. And John says, "Eric, you're not doing anything." I said, "Well, John, you got Philip Harrison, Sid Mead, and No, don't be silly. He picks up a pen, he goes, here, oh, and he starts drawing these stick figures, like, you know. And so, okay, well, I can do better than that. So I, kind of got my juices flowing, and I came up with these anthropomorphic, upright, uh, uh, characters that were as anthropomorphic as possible. And I believed that they really had to be able to emote. The whole idea of the puppetry was a modified Bunraku puppetry that we saw at the L.A. Contemporary Museum of Art. They were doing some renovation or something, but Bruce Schwartz was a Bunraku puppeteer, and Doug had the idea of how can we marry that to a action prop. So that's basically what we did. The idea was to get the human as close to it as possible. And in the meantime, it turns out that there were a couple things going on during that time, like the uncanny valley, for instance, which is a theory that humans like anthropomorphicity in robots. And the more anthropomorphic they are, the more they like them up to a point, and then it becomes weird and creepy. And
yeah.
And I think Johnny Five is kind of living proof of that, because we knew we had to give him the things that we have to emote, to display emotions, and that was a big part of the thing. And so this whole uncanny valley thing, it's like, to me, nobody wants a robot that has this black glass face that's standing over them, And nobody wants a robot, a better than average looking human being. It's just not going to end up that way. Just like in the early automobile industry, when Henry Ford started mass producing cars, and all of a sudden everybody started mass producing cars. The Dodge brothers next year just started taking off. They realized that they had to do more than just make a reliable vehicle. They had to make something that appealed emotionally to people. And then the art departments came into the auto industry and, cut to Harley Earl making all these fantastic designs. A car is more than just going to buy a utilitarian vehicle. It became an emotional attachment to the thing. Well, imagine now you're going to have anthropomorphic robots that are bright enough to actually interact with us in environments made by humans for humans. Well, not only are they going to have to be able to move around and function, but people are going to have to like them. And if they're going to like them, they're going to have to like what I call their robonality, which is basically, the robot version of personality, a distinct sets of characteristics that add to its unique being. And so I think now the robots are really starting to come around, and who knows, 20 years from now, I can only imagine what it's going to be like. I really believe that the companies that are successful selling robots are going to be the ones that take that more, kind of make them like a character in their own right. They don't, bigger screen, like Chappie, for instance, in the movie. What was the movie Chappie was in?
Well, I can't think of it.
I think it was called.
You should know this. Was that the name of it?
Was it?
Oh, yeah. You're talking about the one with Tom Hanks?
No. Chappie was the one where he got kind of, he got.
Oh, yeah, it is called Chappie. Yeah. Oh, yeah, with Hugh Jackman. I got it. Right. Sigourney Weaver. Okay.
For example, the movie Chappie. Now, they did a great job. The CGI was great. You couldn't really tell that wasn't a character there. The nonverbal language that it did with its body movement was great, but it had a monitor face. And that's the only criticism I have of the movie, is they should have taken it farther. They should have given him a three-dimensional characteristic face of his own that would have been able to do more of the emotion. Because the monitor, at the end of the day, is a monitor, and you're just not going to get the same thing. And there's, if you research nonverbal communication in humans, there's so much that deals with the facial expression is such a huge part of it. I mean, you instantly know if somebody's sad, if they're happy, if they're angry, if they're inquisitive. You know all these things just based on their expressions. I think robots are going to end up being the same thing. And I think the ones that sell more of them are going to be the ones that give people what they want. Friendly robots with a good robonality. So that's my robonality pitch.
Yeah. My daughter sees the one at Walmart that cleans.
Yeah.
And she's so scared of it. Because out of nowhere, it just like changes directions. Like it doesn't come close to people, but she sees it and she like freaks out. Even like the supermarket by me, they have one that checks to see what is getting low in stock. Like it goes through and scans all the shelves to see what needs to be like refilled.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Well, an example of what I'm talking about with Dr. Apostolos was that she had a grant for a paraplegic research project where maybe robots could be implemented. And this was way early. This was when, the first industrial robot, the Puma, And so she got a robot arm and she programmed it to empty a refrigerator. And she put lights on its 3 different axes of its body and left in a dark room, relatively dark room, left the shutter open, got like one of those lights on the freeway pictures of this thing unloading the refrigerator. And it was all this, random movement. She then got a paraplegic guy and did the same thing, and had him. And the lines were more flowing and less rigid and smooth decel. And it's, and it just was a more pleasant looking thing. And her PhD dissertation was on user acceptance of a robotic arm through friendly, human, non-threatening movement, basically. It's I forget the exact title, but the point is that enable them to like the machines, they're going to have to not move like, a robot. They're going to have human. And one of my, there's a lot of Johnny Five fans out there building full-size Johnny Fives. And that's very, cool. And
that is really cool.
The thing is, they're still using the old technology, and they're just not, they're frankly the exact opposite of the way they should be moving. And there's a couple guys out there doing some really good stuff, really nice movements with the smaller ones, but the full size ones are just kind of all herky jerky, and that to me just ruins the whole character of the robot, And so I'm hoping that I can kind of maybe coach them how to make it a little bit,
Isn't that crazy? All these years later, like something, because I don't know if you thought this way in the 80s, because there was really like VHS tapes were getting made, but they were super expensive.
Yeah.
In like that part of the 80s. Did you ever think, like, because a lot of people would be like, oh, I saw a movie or I made a movie, and I talked to this guy, Sam Furstenberg. He did a lot of the Canon films. I know you worked on a few Canon, but he worked on Revenge of the Ninja. And he told me, like, after he was done making that movie, he goes, I never thought any of these movies, because he did Break-In, Break-In 2, all those. He's like, I had no idea. 35, 40 years later, like, we'd be having like anniversaries and people would be getting together and celebrate.
Yeah.
Because when I was younger, I'd see a movie and then I'd be like, oh, maybe it'll be movie of the week. But that was really it.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think as films became more epic, Gladiator, the original, and the earlier films, the big widescreen formats, and all of the Star Wars, of course, that it just, movies became so much more than just storytelling about everything's about people, but I don't know. Definitely, I know what you mean. There was definitely a transition to where now, 50-year anniversary of 2001, 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. but it's because they've been around long. On the other hand, every Christmas, there was Miracle on 42nd Street, and The Wizard of Oz every spring. You could count on it being there, So
oh yeah, I know.
Still to this day,
yeah, they still play March of the Wooden Soldiers with Laura and Hardy. They play that it's channel 11 out here, but no matter what, it's always on. I think it's on Black Friday, the morning of Black Friday, I guess. But
and then
so doing Johnny 5, it did that kind of, because I know you're already working on commercials at this point, but did that help because you worked on one of a very quotable commercial, and a commercial everybody knows is like the Energizer Bunny commercials.
That's right. There he is, right there.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
So that was something that was before you were involved?
No,
it was not a thing, or was it already made? Whoa, that's the innards of the bunny.
That's him.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, no, that's kind of a similar thing,
Yeah.
I was originally, this is after my company was going, and, things were going really well. I was working for a guy named Bob Abel. He did a lot of really high-tech commercials, and I was his guy for a while before he went out of business. He always spent more money than he had making his commercials great. And So I had a guy working with me who was like kind of my lead guy, and he somebody that he knew at RSA USA had contacted me, and through him, that he wanted that about this commercial, and this was BBD Needham was the ad agency, and it wasn't going through commercials at this point. The very first ad, as you know, or you either know or don't know, that there's a Duracell bunny in Europe, and Duracell, which is the direct competitor, and it's a little snare drum pink bunny, and somehow during it was like 1989 or 1988 when they first approached us. There was some sort of contractual thing where there was a fight between Energizer and everybody was doing these ads with batteries where they were comparing themselves to the other guy, So they made a commercial where they had sort of parodies of the little snare drum bunnies. They looked almost just like the Duracell bunnies, but they were different colors. They were purple and blue and stuff. and the copy was a lot of battery companies advertised that they are long lasting, and then one at a time the little bunnies would stop, but nothing outlasts the Energizer. And here comes the Energizer Bunny. So we had started the project, and I hired a gentleman named Chris Ross. He's an illustrator. He's done a lot of things you've seen. And he was very, very talented model maker, and really wanted to be an illustrator, but was, coming up through the model shop. So every time he worked for me, he ended up being my art department head guy. And he would design a lot of stuff. And him and another gentleman who since we're recording this, I'll get this other guy's name. Anyway, Stuart was swapping. So Christopher Ross was swapping drawings with an agency art director who was taking the bunny in this direction of Chris's first ones were kind of dopey looking, and then this guy's had a big grin, but it was, looked a little more aggressive. Well, Chris ended up putting everything together and came up with the final rendering of what the bunny would look. Just as he did that, we were starting to sculpt the bunny. Because, we only had like 8 weeks to build the thing. And, well, I had a dispute with Bob, with this gentleman. I had a dispute with my lead man. And I was doing some profit sharing. He thought he was getting undercut. And I tried to explain, no, it's based on profit, And anyway, he ended up leaving, and he knew the producer, and he took the thing out of my shop. Now, at that point, it was totally I could have easily, I already had a deal memo. I could have gotten a lawyer, but I just, I'm not a litigious guy. And my crew said, what are we going to do? Do you have anything else for us? I said, no, just don't worry about it. Just go. So then we did that first commercial where you see the bunny, with the little bunnies running out and the first guy comes through. After that, the Chiat Day was, every couple of years, major campaigns like that go through a review where the product will send to like 2 or 3 of the top agencies they'll solicit ideas. Well, Chiat Day came up with the idea, let's have him walk off the stage. We'll pick up that commercial where he ends and all the bunnies, and he'll walk off the stage, and that's the commercial. Then we'll get into, he starts coming across the line, the different things, the products. And so I get a call from RSA USA, was the company that did the first one. They were the production company that did the first one. And the guy said, hey, Eric, it's so-and-so, we know we screwed you, but you're really the guy that should have built the thing. It wasn't what you said it was going to be. It wasn't self-contained. We if you will, we'd really like you to build the bunny. I said, sure, I'll do it, but I own it. I own hardware. And then you have the rights to it, of course. So that's what we did. And so we built the first 2, the A and the B bunny. We always had 2. And we always had the second one ready right there. I mean, it's a mechanical bunny with 13 servos in it, and something will go wrong. And when it does, we didn't say, the bunny's broken, the bunny. We just quietly exchange it.
Move it over.
2 guys would go out to the truck and fix it. They never knew. We didn't advertise when it broke. They never knew that the thing really kept going and going. And about 4 years into it, this gal at the agency said, you got to lose a couple of your crew. And I said, what are you talking about? I've never charged you more money. We've been doing 4 years. It's like becoming iconic. You want me to cut down my crew? Well, you got 2 guys that half the time they're just sitting around not doing anything. I said, well, then we're having a really good day because those are the 2 repair guys,
Yeah.
So anyway, they said, okay, well, we're going to get another guy. And they went looking and they tried to replace me. And listen, I know I'm not the only guy who can do freaking, animatronic bunnies. If they would have gone to the right people, Rick Baker, ADI, any number of, good Stan Winston at that time, any number of A guys, and there's several more would have, Rick Lazzarini, they would have pulled it off, but they went to the wrong people apparently because, because who did they go to? They went back to the first guy
oh no,
honest to God. The left hand over there didn't know what the right hand was doing. And so then I got it and did it for 6 more years until they, now during this 10-year, really 12-year period, during this 12-year period, I realized I had subsequently gotten to SAG. I realized I got screwed on Short Circuit because I drove Johnny Five every frame of that movie. I didn't get paid SAG. I really should.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the Energizer Bunny, they made the argument because Section J6 of the SAG contract, which covers puppeteering, said if the character's operated by rod, hand, or wire, then the performer is entitled to the same SAG benefits. Well, that was written in the 40s. What did they know about remote control?
Yeah.
So I just said, okay, I was brain dead. I was going through a horrible divorce, and it was just like, you know what? Get another guy, to use your own, use your own terms. And because I was sitting there in my office thinking, this sucks. What am I going to do? All of a sudden, the fax machine, where you get things in fax, goes off like 12 new bunny commercials. I think, salvation. Because I had spoken with them the year before and said, you guys you got it. It's time. 10 years, $200 million a year for 10 years has been your budget. And you can't, pay me.
Yeah.
Hired me twice, and come on. And they said, okay, we agree. And the client, who had a good relationship, said, the client has no problem. So when I called, I said, we're doing this set, right? No. I said, okay, get another guy. And they said, well, it's our bunnies. And I said, I'm sorry, you don't own any bunnies. I mean, they just, and it's really what kind of killed the campaign, because I don't know why, but it took them 2 years from that day that I was getting those faxes and they wanted to do it, roll off another 12 commercials till they did another one. And they had some pretty capable people that I knew, but they just, for some reason, they didn't pull it off satisfactory. And when the review came up, they lost the contract, and now it's a computer. Wow. So that's there. There's my sour grapes.
Yeah.
And, nobody can take away the things that I've accomplished. And I've just found that whenever I've been involved more than like, here's a blueprint, build this, which I've done plenty of, and, and not at all. The projects have really been successful. Johnny 5 from Short Circuit, the Energizer Bunny, Bill Condon. I worked with Bill Condon when he was writing FX2, and a lot of my ideas were the whole green screen thing. And I mean, we did things on that I was brought into the tent, so to speak. It wasn't like, get the back lot guy out of here. We'll handle this. We'll tell him what to do. I really gelled with everybody on that. And we did things like, there's a scene where Raleigh Tyler is coming down a fire escape trying to get away, and he's under the Brooklyn Bridge. Well, the Brooklyn Bridge was a 10th scale model, 12 feet in the air, and he was 40 feet in the air. And, I suggested I told in our meetings, said, we can build a miniature bridge, and he'll be up. Well, how do we hold fun? Well, you put a split diopter, which is like half a lens, just tape it to the front of the camera. And, and they said, well, what's that going to cost? I said, we'll probably have about 6 or 8 man days into it. And then just the setup. And they said, well, look, for that, let's just try it. If it doesn't work, we can always go, we'll have the miniature at that point. We can always do something, So we did it. We shot it. And I even put a little belt on there with little grain of wheat bulbs that were red and white. So it looked like there was traffic. And by the time you see it in the movie and you see him coming, there's 2 shots of one, the ladder's coming down. You see him coming down the ladder. The second shot, you see the little lights up there in the bottom of the Brooklyn Bridge, and you hear the horns honking and the motor sounds. It was there. And
that's awesome.
One was we had this helicopter, this fancy French helicopter that was at the mob boss, mansion, and Brawley.
Oh yeah, the end of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So we couldn't have the real helicopter there. And I just said, well, just get a large format camera, like 8x10 camera. Put it where you're going to have your camera. Let's land the helicopter out there at the angle that you want it, and we'll get a picture of it. And we'll blow it up full size. And I'll put a motor with some PVC pipe on it to make the blades, So we did that. And, when you were standing right there looking at it, it looked ridiculous because it was all, out of shape by standing there. But when you were at the point of the camera, it looked like the freaking helicopter, as if it was sitting there. We even had it cut out, and we had the actor sit up on apple boxes, behind the thing. And it worked out great. And we had a lot of shots like that, which is really kind of cool about the whole FX movies, that one in particular, is that there's a lot of effects people just would never even realize it is, because it wasn't visual effects. It was real. It was just, we're working with a 2-dimensional medium in this case, and so there's a lot you can get away with. And another movie.
Did you try any of those camera tricks before, like prior to this? Like, did it make it to the screen?
Yeah. I mean, I was reared by Doug Trumbull and Richard Urasich were a couple of my mentors, and I didn't do a lot of that stuff. I did motion control for Doug, mostly build track rigs and camera stuff, just reconfiguring existing equipment, stepper motors and drives and that sort of thing. But yeah, the world of, when I started, motion control was kind of a new thing. It wasn't used that much. and there was no such thing as CGI. It was mostly large-scale miniatures or stop-frame animation or things like that. So I just was fortunate to come up through that period of time and worked around some really good people and observed, what they did. And then when I applied it myself, it worked. And another notable movie that I worked on was The Class of 1999. Now, this is a Vestron beat.
Oh, yeah. Good movie. I interviewed Patrick Kilpatrick.
Right. And I was the visual effects supervisor, second unit director, creature effects supervisor. I mean, it was the whole thing. And I didn't, it's probably was the best opportunity I ever had. And I totally blew it because I was in an interview with a magazine, and I was kind of just talking off the record, and I dissed the director. And this guy writes this article and I said, "What the fuck are you doing?" What? And Mark calls me. Oh, and I'd say that was the biggest open mouth A and cert foot B I've ever done, because he gave me more latitude and a bigger part than anybody ever had, even Short Circuit. I mean, he had me go when I first read the script, because morphs were a big deal at the time. Everybody was doing morphs, and I just. For one thing, you don't have a lot of money, so to get all these expensive visual effects, it's going to take away. Why don't and I kind of said, instead of having it do this, why don't you have her rip her arm off and it's a flamethrower? Well, so we went through all that, and he says, "Listen, I got 2 new writers. Go meet them at whatever hotel they're at tonight." And so we went and rewrote all these scenes. And then we did it, and I directed all of the special effects scenes in there, the second unit stuff. It was just great with Pam Grier, J.P. Ryan, and Patrick Kilpatrick.
Yeah, dude.
Rodney McDowell. It was just incredible. So, Mark, I'm sorry, man. But I was my own worst enemy, which, happens sometimes with creative people. But that was a great. And then Stuart Little was good too. I got nominated for an Oscar for visual effects. I did Stuart Little himself was a CGI mouse. Even in the scenes where the car's way out there was a CGI mouse. That was the studio edict. And everything else pretty much was live action. I'm sure they did a lot of other tricks I don't know about because they're really good. But for the most part, all the boat stuff, the car, all of and all of that was actual mechanical stuff.
Did you expect a nomination? Is that something that you ever thought about, like on any movies you ever worked about?
Anything, it would have happened for Short Circuit. But at that time, because we were actually, they had a thing called the cook-off, where the select committee of visual effects people, which I was on a couple of years, a long time ago, you go through all 700 titles of movies that are eligible for a visual effects. And then when once comes that somebody wants to talk about it, you talk about it and run it around. Usually it's because there's a guy from ILM, there's a guy from Apogee, there's a guy, there was a guy from effects. And so, I did my Short Circuit. So they call it the bake-off. They boil it down now to 10, but it used to be 7 films that can win the Oscar, but they're gonna take it down to 3 or 5, whatever. It's changed over the years. I think it's 3 now, or maybe it's 5. I don't know. So we got to that point where we did the bake off, and then when I went up to give my little presentation, I said, we're just really proud that there's very little visual effects in this in terms of animation, or I think it's all live action. And if you can imagine, shooting on a 16-week shooting schedule in the rain with 15 robots and blah blah. But we didn't even get nominated, because I think people pretty much figured once the branch nominates, then it goes to the general membership. And I think people would have really responded well to Johnny 5 if we had got nominated.
Yeah.
And then we got in the cook-off for Short Circuit 2 as well. But
okay.
But, yeah, so you think about it. people say, and then of course I got nominated with John Dykstra, and if it matters, we can get it. But John Dykstra was the visual effects supervisor, and I was the mechanical effects supervisor. So along with his team, I was nominated. And yeah, it was cool. I really needed that at that time, And but of course we were up against the Matrix. So and good luck. And they got it, of course. But it was great experience, the whole thing.
No, that's cool. Another one you mentioned, we were chatting on the phone a little bit, was Teenage Mutant Turtles 3.
Yeah,
hanging out in Astoria for a while.
Yeah, that was great. When the producer came in and had to have a meeting, and he dropped the bomb. He goes, "We're going to do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, and we're taking bids." Terry Morse was his name. He was the unit production manager, I think, maybe line producer on the third one. And I said, "Terry," come on, man, you've made 2 movies, you've spent like $30 million, and you've made $200 million, and you're gonna replace the stars of the show. I'm just not, to do a bid on something like this is really involved, and I'm just not interested. For one thing, I'm a fan of the work, and I'm not going to be the guy to just beat somebody down on their bid. And he goes, "No," he goes, "we're going to hire somebody else." He goes, he had something on for, I don't know what it was, but he said, "We're going to hire some. I know we don't have to go to England to make this stuff. We can do it here. We're going to shoot it here. If you want a chance at it, you'll give a proposal." So I did. Now, I knew that the Henson Group, who I have untold respect for, was going to have right of first refusal. They were going to get a look at my bid and my technical writing and decide if they wanted to match my number, because they were going to be higher than me automatically, right? So I did a good bid. It was like $3.7 million. And, to build something like that is a lot more involved than people think. We had to make 8 suits for each performer.
Oh, yeah.
And there's 8 performers. There's 4 stunt guys. So we had to make 72 suits, 10 hero heads, Splinter, and his hero head, all of this stuff. But I knew that they were having problems. They have this thing, it was the performance capture system. And it was just a conceptually brilliant system that could blend expressions. So you could get a smile, if you did a smile on one control and evil on the other, and you did them at the same time, it became an evil smile. I have a YouTube video you can see on my.
Oh, cool! I gotta check it out.
Thing of that system. Well, that was a material part of the deal. They said, you have to be able to build a performance system like this, and I knew we could. I knew the people, Bob Wilcox, Ted Chanowski, Young Kwan. These guys I knew could build, and it was really the software was going to be the thing. But Bob Wilcox is a brilliant guy. And so we got together and I challenged him and came up with the form function based on a magazine article I saw of the Henson Group's thing. And that's all we ever saw, but so we kind of said, okay, let's make it, why mess with perfection? Because it was brilliant. It's just, they had a lot of chatter. They had a lot of interference, for whatever reason. And, but when I wrote that part of the proposal, I wrote it like a complete Rube Goldberg. We're going to take Futaba radios apart, and I just made it so that any serious person building a performance capture system would say, "Oh man, these guys are going to fail. They'll come running to us a month before production." Well, and honestly, they read that thing. I got the job, and when they saw what we had done, they were convinced that I had infiltrated the Henson Group and stolen their honest to God.
Oh my God.
Now, I think it's a shame because I have tremendous respect. In fact, Jim Henson, we consulted with when we did the second movie, we were in Toronto, and he had worked with a lot of Toronto people, and it was Jim Henson. He actually came out and visited on the set later, but in pre-production, it was him who put us in touch with Gord Robertson, Trish Leeper, Rob Mills. They were the three main puppeteers that we worked with on that. And I don't know. I always just think because that it was conceived that I infiltrated. I haven't really worked with those guys that much, but I'd love to if you're out there.
Yeah.
We're kindred spirits, okay? It was just business, but I by no means did I ever steal anything.
Yeah.
We just had a really...
What was the hardest thing about, like, when you're obviously building the suits, you have the time to do that. Obviously, it's always under the gun, but like while operating the suits, was that something that, obviously you've worked with robotics and everything, but was something, because I remember Matt was telling me he was the stunt guy in Raphael.
Yeah.
He told me how hot it was that you just shot it in the summer in Astoria, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, from that standpoint, that's why you have 8 suits per guy. Okay, day one, the guy's in a suit. At lunchtime, he gets out of it, cools off, gets in another suit. Okay, now at the end of the day, you got 2 sopping wet, sweaty suits.
Ugh.
To the drawing room, which is, we were at an old school. So we had several rooms. We set up one up with heaters and fans and racks, and you dry them out, and you take antibacterial spray and spray them down, make sure that it's all sanitary. The makeup effects people in Hollywood go a long way. Sanitary procedures are huge. I mean, if you're gluing stuff on, if you're giving them dentures, you're giving them, and these guys are really good at it. So we set up this room. So day 2 now, you use 2 more fresh suits, and the 2 suits are in the drying room all day. Day 3, 2 more suits for the guys, 2 in the drying room, and 2 repair and paint. And get any scuffs on them, get touched up, ready to go. And then you have 2 spare, because somewhere along the way, an arm's going to get ripped, and you're not going to have, and that's what you do for every one of them. And then each stuntman and each actor had a handler who was just a person, a dresser, who would stay with them the whole time. We took hair dryers, took the heating elements out of them, and put them on batteries so they could stick them in the mouth to give them air. And suit performing takes a unique individual. I've been in a couple of them, and I've got to have something I could rip off a head in a second. Guys like Tom Woodruff from Alien, when I worked on Alien Resurrection, you would see Tom there's this alien sitting in a chair, and you go up to Tom, is that you? This guy was a Zen, and they glue him in the thing. It's very claustrophobic. He was so Zen. He did all the underwater shots with a slit in the glued on head. He'd go in the water. He had rehearsed with the stunt coordinators what to do. And when he was out of air, he'd raise his hand. They'd rush in and shove a regulator in the throat of the alien.
Jesus.
Imagine, keeping your cool in that. I can't. But he was like one of the best I've ever seen. But anyway, so for the turtles, that's what you do. And you just keep rotating that stuff. As far as the electronics, Dwight Roberts was sort of he was the head of the electronics. Well, not the electronics, but the servos and the mechanical fabrication. And he had made everything really quick change. So servos could easily be replaced if there was a problem. And I think we replaced 2 on the whole movie. I mean, they just went phenomenally well. And it literally got to the point that, we had the Splinter Hero had 8 hero heads of the 2 of each of the thing. We had a 10th head, which was Michelangelo without his bandana on. They were going to do a scene like that. They decided not to. So we had these 10 hero heads. We had 9 of these performance capture systems we had made. So you have, and they had 16 axes of Waldo. We had 9 of these performance capture systems that had 16 axes of Waldo. and the 16 axes and all these axes, and they just worked really good. Well, guys started, we started playing with electric cars, and then I got a guy to come in and put a racetrack on the parking lot. And we glued plates down to bump stops, and I told guys, listen, I'm all for this, but I'll tell you what, every morning we come in, and here's the checklist, and there's 148 axes of movement of all. Said when every one of these checked off, you can go play with your cars. And we must have spent, I don't know, 150 hours playing with our cars. The stuff
That's
just
awesome.
worked phenomenally. It really.
You'd have fun while you're doing it. But no, that's pretty cool. Did you ever keep any of that stuff?
Well,
is that in a museum somewhere?
I ended up selling a lot of it. I did this movie Virus, and
oh yeah,
it got to a point. When I was awarded the contract or the job, when they told me I was going to do it, I had like $2 million and 24 weeks. By the time they gave me a go, it was $1 million and 12 weeks to build the two big robots and puppets of each. And by then I was on Alien Resurrection. My whole crew was tied up. Hollywood crammed, and I had to hire 70 people I didn't know. And it was a disaster. I mean, it just didn't right. And after that, I just decided, I didn't get it. I got into this business because of the success of what I had done, the characters, and I didn't get in it so that I would have to just take a job because I got to keep the place going. And
to keep the lights on, like you're working just to work.
I just threw up my hands and said, I didn't get in this to do bad work. So that's when I closed the shop down. It was after that I ended up doing Stuart Little. So I just went on the road with my stuff in trucks, and like most effects people, when you get a show, you end up in a shop somewhere. There's a lot of really well-established shops now. There weren't so much back in the day, but I just shut it down and went more freelance style, and still did some neat stuff,
Yeah, no, that's cool. No, that's good that you planned ahead. When I talked to Howard Berger, he talked about like one of his first jobs was for early jobs, Stan Winston for Predator.
Yeah.
Like the second suit, they were at the end of the budget when they had after that, Jean-Claude one looked terrible.
Uh-huh.
And he said like they only had like one pair of hands, one pair of feet. So like if something went wrong, it was like screwed. But at the end of the day, because he was the only one with like a truck or a Jeep, he'd bring the smelly suit into his apartment and he'd stick it in the bathroom with a dehumidifier. And he's like, you would see the gross stuff, but he's like, I had to do it. And it's so crazy when you hear somebody say that for a movie that when you really look back on it, it's kind of like the scene. He was sort of involved with that scene in Aliens when they used like the garbage bags to make like the Queen Alien. But even in Predator, he was like, it was kind of like goofy looking. But when you watch the movie, you wouldn't think that at all.
Yeah, when you say they used the garbage bag to make the alien, was that Bill? Who made the garbage?
I'm trying to think who worked on it, but I know Howard was there. Whenever I watched the documentary on Aliens, it was the one on Netflix. He's not one of the guys that was operating it, but it was really just in the back of Winston's studio.
Right.
And they just filmed it and then made it look like it was there. Pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah. It is kind of amazing to me because the first time I really got involved with makeup effects was on Class of 1999. And I was looking for somebody to head up that part of it in my shop. And I ended up gelling with Rick Stratton. And Rick Stratton went on. Now, he had done a lot of low budget stuff over the years. And, he was coming up. He's a really talented guy. And he had done some big movies too. And he was getting there. And we worked together on that. And he came into All Effects as my, I call them the skin hangers. We built the animatronic stuff. They'd hang the skin. But, obviously it's a very collaborative thing. He went on to do all of the Alien Nation TV series and get a couple Emmys for that.
Oh, yeah. He was good buddies with Steve Neal. Yeah. Steve Neal was good buddies with him, yeah.
Definitely Steve Neal was there for some of that stuff, too, yeah.
That's awesome. So Eric, we're right at like an hour. I have a few more questions. Obviously, with you, it's not like I can cover all the every single credit. But one that I watched last night, which I think is still one of those movies that it just is so unique. It's so well done. Big Fish.
Yeah, Big Fish. That was Tim Burton.
Yeah,
it was worked on the crew, the FX crew. I wasn't supervising anything, but oddly enough, the guys at Legacy, it was Stan Winston at the time. I don't think it was Legacy yet. It was still Stan Winston, right? There was a scene where they had to have their fish in the pool, and they had tried something and it wasn't working. And Stan Parks, who was the special effects supervisor that I was working for, suggested, well, Eric's got that track. He did the boats on Stuart Little. Maybe let's talk to him. I was already working on the movie, on the crew, and I said, sure. So we set up the same track system that we used for the boats, similar system, I mean. And we got the Big Fish in that, that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And, but other than that, it was fun. It was crazy because we're in Alabama and it flooded, man. I mean, we literally had sets, buildings that were 12 feet tall, completely underwater. It was unbelievable. And at one point, we're somewhere in a barn. The guy who's lending the land, who's leasing the land where they're making all this stuff. So I said, you know damn well that storm was going to be flooding. He goes, okay, I also own the gravel company. Got tons of trucks coming in and trying, it was insane. But yeah, that was a unique experience. Tim Burton, he's a difficult guy. He's very moody, and I don't know. That was a weird one for me. But, I'd say one of my best experiences with directors was I worked on Sudden Impact for Chuck Gasper and Joe, me and Hal Seelig, crew guys. So we did all the work under their tutelage. But man, I tell you, Clint Eastwood, what a director he is. Just incredible. We'd work 8, 9, 10-hour days, 5 days a week. He'd save a couple of shots for a Saturday because if he brought the crew in, they'd get 12 hours. So instead of whatever the minimum was, so he'd save it. We'd shoot for 2 hours. Have a nice weekend, guys. Incredible director. That was.
I heard he's the coolest guy. Like I talked to, now you mentioned it. I've talked to like 3 or 4 people that helped this guy Larry Hankin write his book. And he was in Escape from Alcatraz. He's like the third lead in the movie, I would say. Mm-hmm. And he talked about how great Clint was. I talked to another actor. You know him too, Jeffrey, because he was in Back to the Future too. Jeffrey Wiseman. He took over for Crispin Glover in the movies and did part 2 and 3.
Did a little. I built the gun that.
Okay. But yeah, anyway, so he worked with him on a Western. And he was like, Clint's there, like when there's like the dinner, like when we're eating, he's sitting right next to us. Like, hey, how you guys doing? It's like, wow, this is like really cool. I think Sudden Impact's a cool movie because he was dating her at the time.
Yeah.
So she was the
punk, make my day for the first time.
Yeah.
Wondering what's his catchline going to be? What's his catch?
I know.
Script, I think it's a catchphrase here. What's it going to be? What's going to be? You don't think we're going to just let you walk out, do you? And I'm down there on the nail board ready to go. And we start banging off everything in the diner, Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Else.
That's a badass movie.
Yeah.
Good ending scene. Like at like the abandoned, well, I'm not abandoned, but late night, little carnival kind of thing. Like that was cool, man. That's a great movie.
In fact, when they did the thing where he falls on the unicorn. And, well, me and Hal are up on top of this 100-year-old Ferris wheel. And it's like, quick, we got to go. We're up there with buckets of breakaway glass and stuff that we're going to dump as if, he had just fallen. Chuck Gasper had carved the unicorn horn that they stuck on him. And so at the end, he just goes like this, he was already in place. So the carpenters get up there and they put some 2x12s up for us to get on, and we're up there. The thing starts moving, and these big tank things start going on. I'm thinking, oh my God, if one of those, we're going to break it. And somehow it just, everything missed. It didn't break any bone. It didn't, it was crazy. That was something I'll never forget. Just at that moment, like we're shooting. I yell cut? No, I don't. This happens, and thank God, everything missed.
That's a good one too.
Yeah.
That's a good one. And it's so funny that you mentioned that, like the line that people talk about that's the fourth film.
Yeah.
So in the fourth film is the line that people associate Dirty Harry with, and they're really thinking of that original flick, but it's like, no, it's the fourth installment, which was more of a Sandra Locke movie than his movie. Like he's in it, but not as much. But you get there's some great parts of the movie. Pat Hingle's great in it, and it's just it's a really well done. But I got to rewatch that.
Yeah, we even did when he gets shot in the forehead, the one rapist gets shot in the forehead. We worked with the makeup department, and we ended up gluing a dime to his head, and we used a D80 1/16, which is a little teeny round flat bullet hit. And then we put I forget what kind of organic mass we put in there, and they glued a skin on, and if you look, the guy looked like a unicorn, but with flat lighting, you couldn't see it, So when he shot, if you're looking there, you're thinking, this is ridiculous. That's never going to work. But you see it in the movie, and, it worked perfect. And
So, Eric, I have a few questions. Thanks again for taking the time.
Yeah.
What would you say? I know it's so hard to narrow it down. So just name like maybe one in your head of your like top 5 or top 10. But when was the first time when you saw your work on screen that you were like, oh my God, I did that? Like that you were almost amazed on the way something came out that you created with your own hands?
Well, Short Circuit, certainly, because, as it turns out, the drawings I did, John really liked. I was pushing him toward this anthropomorphic thing. And it became between Sid and me, and Sid who's, infinitely better artist than I am. But he was drawing this round robot that had wheels, and it had a head sticking up. And my whole rap was, you got to make it as human as you can to get the emotion. And John liked what I was doing, and we were the day before we were going to go to the meeting to get it approved. Sid had his final thing, and John said, "No, Sid, look, Eric's been showing us these little drawings. This is what I want. We have this meeting tomorrow. You got to come up with something other than that. We're talking about their expression, their arms. I'll take this in if I have to, it was that kind of thing." So next day at the meeting, Sid shows up with this drawing of Johnny Five, which is a lot different. His rendering of it, if you look at any of the fan magazine or anything, it was kind of, for the, 12 weeks I was going to have, it was undoable for me. And I just asked the face was pretty undefined, and I asked for that. I said, "Listen, I'm going to have to take certain license. The way he has the arms on there, you don't see any way. Maybe 50 years from now you can build something like that, but right now and they said, you just do whatever you have to do to make it, So I had a lot of license that way, and there again, I worked with Christopher Ross. He developed the head. He made foam core models, and Tom Pock, who was another great model maker. These guys were all out of Entertainment Effects Group, Doug Trumbull's company, and Mark Stetson, proteges. He developed the head, and we worked together. So that was great, just because I did have so much input on the character, and subsequently, it's still loved today. They even mention it in the Mars rover documentary movie that they made.
Really?
Yeah, they say,
cool.
when he wakes up with this little Johnny Five face, I mean, it is. If you're going to have an anthropomorphic robot, it's got to have the same things. And the best example of that, I did a commercial with Legacy. They needed a robot. They didn't have any time, so we used my PAL robot. Okay. My robot is the robot that I did that they saw that got me the opportunity to do Short Circuit, right? So we do this commercial and we're getting B-roll down on Fisherman Wharf in San Francisco for some internet stuff. And kids are running up to the robot and saying, look, it's Wall-E, So, and I know our producers on Short Circuit were all mad. They thought Wall-E ripped us off. Well, look, if you're going to have an anthropomorphic robot that is as human-like as you can be, but it's still intentionally mechanical and not a fleshy, replicant, they're all going to look the same,
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's going. It's just different versions of Johnny Five or Pal or Miles, the one I made after that. Yeah. So that was by far the best, but also Class of 1989 was great too to see, just because we did so much on that movie. I mean, we had 780 effect shots, all mechanical creature stuff, rigs, and that was a lot of fun. Stuart Little, that was good. Stuart Little.
Oh yeah. I'm sure there's a ton. I just always think it's so amazing when you're doing this kind of work that when you see it on screen, like an actor, I'm not saying they can't have that moment. They're like, wow, that was me. But it isn't like you're you. It's something that you're creating and that's moving on screen,
To be fair, me and 50 other people, I mean,
I know.
It takes a lot of, just to give everybody their kudos. I have, ruled with an iron fist, when I'd come up with some approaches and people would, at All Effects, people would say, well, I think I'm going to do it this way and that way. And I'd say, well, no, this is what I sold them. I've already kind of figured it out. I've already bought the materials. I can't start over. We've come, this far. And my younger brother would say, we have a saying around here. And they'd say, what's that? They'd say, in Eric, we trust, Oh, instantly, But Stuart Little was good too, because, I wanted to do the boats live action. And the visual effects people, of course, wanted to do visual effects. And my argument was that, we're not trying to recreate big ships at sea. It's actually toy boats. So if we just make them a little larger, it'll still have the effect of their dueling on the open sea when they get into the final battle. But and so I did a presentation. Brent Bell was working with me as a mechanical designer at the time, and he organized the thing. We went through every storyboard and all the track we would need and all the rigs we would need. And it was pretty complicated, but it never failed. It never worked. As we were getting into it, some other people came along that had done a lot of really great effects with boats, and they were getting their opinion and said, well, it looks kind of complicated. And Brian Frankish, who's the pianist, said, yeah, man, but it works flawlessly, And I think that's just the thing. That's one of the things I've always been good at. And it's not tooting my own horn in terms of being a great fabricator or designer. It's more of just a good manager, With Johnny Five, I had a lot of really talented people. With Short Circuit, a lot of really, talented people in the control systems for Ninja Turtles and the makeup effects for Class of 1989. There's always really good people based on the principle that you plan your shoot and shoot your plan. I always insisted on storyboards, and the production would. When I did the Class of 1999, like I said, we had over 800 separate storyboard shots that we were building to, and that way you build what you need. If you look back here, it's going to be a hollow piece of fiberglass with a bunch of wires coming out of it. But if the shot here, this is what you're going to see, And that's what gives me the thrill when I've seen things that I know have been successful, that we worked as a group so hard to achieve, to do it live action. I'm a big fan of CGI where it's used. I'm kind of over all the superhero movies. I mean, how many times can somebody beat somebody up, and move unrealistically and stuff? But I just think the live action stuff, when it's as good as Chappie, that CGI of that Chappie robot, you get lost in it. That robot's for real. I didn't like it had a monitor face, but that's just a personal aesthetic thing. You would never know that wasn't a real robot. So yeah, it has its place and it works really good for things. But a lot of time, but then you look at the credits list and there's 500 people, So if you can do things live action, and nowadays companies like Legacy are just proving that we've caught up in a lot of ways. The newer servo technology, the control systems, the skills, the CAD CAM, computer-aided design, and then additive manufacturing, printing, CNC, all this. You can design these amazing things with amazing people and put them together in really quick time. I did a few projects over at Legacy toward the end of my career, and it was just amazing. It was like getting a PhD, to how they do this stuff. They everything's done with digital models from the art department that are refined. And, we built this robot for Space Girl, Star Girl. We built the Star Girl robot, which is a big 15-foot tall, basically Iron Man suit that the actor crawls up and gets into and the doors close. We did that in 8 weeks. And it was just amazing to think about that. I was the lead mechanical designer that built the stuff. The guy, I was working like 3 inches between hard centers of the exterior of this thing and the interior where he's going to be. And you have to make this frame that holds these 400-pound arms. And, it's like 5 weeks into the project and you start hanging the panels on there. They got to fit. They just got to fit. And they do, because everybody's on the same page, It's So that, I think, and nowadays with all the Star Wars stuff, Legacy does a lion's share of that, and they just recently did, I don't think I could say. Anyway, they did the lion's share of the Star Wars stuff these days, and it's all, even, Guru is a little puppet, and now they're taking him to the next step. And, he's getting more and more. It's just really good stuff. And when the actors work with that stuff and they have it right there to interact with.
You could tell it's more legit. You can tell sometimes, even if it's the best planning for CGI in some movies, you can just look at the eye line and you're like, they're not looking at that ghost that's in front of them. It's not even close, or whatever creature that they're trying to create. No, it's so great even when it comes to stunts, it's like when you have that feeling when you're watching a scene and that all the elements are real, everything's there. Mm-hmm. You just appreciate it more. But like you said about the Marvel, I saw the first 2 Iron Mans, and it's just too much. It's way too much, not real.
Yeah. And the Energizer Bunny too. Who didn't love to hate the Energizer Bunny? And now,
I know,
goofy cartoon that is
keeps going and going and going.
Yeah. I'm sure that guy made a fortune.
Yeah. Hey, Eric, this has been so much fun. Last question, because you kind of mentioned it earlier, and I wrote it down. Did you ever, just looking at your credits, I wouldn't know if you ever bumped into him, because I know he does a lot of producing, but did you ever bump into Spielberg and mention the connection at all?
No.
That you guys have? No.
True, because like I said, my dad worked for his dad in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And whereas he was being encouraged to play with his cameras I wasn't. And, my dad just said, oh, I'll let him go over and play with Steven, for whatever reason. But it was actually Spielberg who saw Pal at a screening of Showscan, the Pal robot. And he told Adam that, I know you're looking for a robot. You should go check out this Pal character.
Wow, look at that.
No. And apparently when they saw my name on the credits and I wasn't at the meeting, they approached me through the back door, basically. And then, and even after Short Circuit, I was offered the Time Machine, Spielberg.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to keep my shop and build it at my shop, but they wanted me to go to the studio, so I declined. Probably one of the stupidest.
Yeah.
I also was the guy, when they approached me for RoboCop, I said, a guy in a suit, I don't think it'll work. What the hell do I know?
Yeah. No, I just thought it was really cool if you guys connected. Like, it would have been like a weird little, like, yeah.
Yeah, it would. But I mean, it is what it is.
So are you still working? Like if somebody called you and said, hey, we need something.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, I would supervise. Obviously, I have done some things like from Marvel. They needed a couple of robots for one of their Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes. So I used
okay.
to that. I have, but I'm doing things like, this is one thing here. This, is a little thing I designed. And basically what it is, I've actually applied for a patent on it. You just make a little, 3-axis gimbal for a head out of servos. And you control a GoPro camera.
Oh, cool.
And then right where the lens is, that's his nose. So now I can put this on a robot and I'm looking at a monitor and I can see, what I'm looking at is, he's got little eyelids and stuff. So, this is how I'm spending my time now. I'm going to start selling these things eventually, I guess. But, I do. Sometimes I'm still what they call active retired in the union. So I can work, 49 and a half hours a week, although I haven't worked for a good year. And, but in terms of things, I get some requests from student films. I try to help them out. If they can't afford to do it, at least I can send them in the right direction,
Oh, that's cool.
But I'd love to do another big project or of something. We'll see.
Yeah.
I've got one.
What do you think you'd be doing if you never got like even the mill job? I know you thought about this sort of before all that occurred, but what do you think you would be doing?
You mean after I got out of the Army?
Yeah, I'm saying if you never got the mill job, never got the foot in the door, and never got able to walk over to hand your resume to the special effects guy,
what else?
Was there another career?
I don't know. I've never been one to not get what I wanted in terms, I mean, special is, we started pre-phase with 360 guys and 10 months later, 29 of us graduated, I was even offered West Point, full boat to West Point in basic training. They picked the two guys out of the company with the highest test scores. And I turned that down. I knew my path was not through college. I just wasn't, I was learning disabled. It's like I always say, special effects, special forces, special ed. I'm special, and it's the truth. I don't know what else I could have done. The great thing about this career, I really hit it at the right time because, we were kind of making it up as we go along. There's a long history of mechanical special effects when I got in the industry, but it continued to just evolve. And especially when computers started getting involved with the manufacturing side, not necessarily CGI. I don't know. I really can't say what I would have done. I kind of regret not staying in the military as a reservist to just keep those chops up. But regret's the wrong word. That I might have gone back to that had I not, found a successful career. But
It worked out. You were meant to do it, like you said, like your little brother said, right?
Yeah.
Eric's way. Eric's way is the right way. Was that what it was?
It's that in Eric we trust.
In Eric we trust.
Those who have, and listen, I had a reputation at times of being difficult. It's just went with the territory at some point. I'm definitely not narcissistic, but arrogant. I had been arrogant. I'm not. I'm a flawed human being like everybody else. But when I've gotten, for whatever reason, involved with people that have embraced my creative side, it's always turned out good for all of us. Short Circuit, Energizer Bunny, Ninja Turtles, Stuart Little, bunch of commercials. And that's, I just like being brought into the tent, So come on, man, bring me.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Eric, thanks, man. This has been great. This probably will be out September, October. And what I'll do is I'll shoot you an email when it comes out, and really appreciate you taking the time getting back to me.
Okay, man. I hope you have enough to edit it into a.
Oh yeah, man, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
I love when people take that trip down memory lane, because I talked to can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he plays Tubi on Star Trek Voyager. Tim Russ. And when I interviewed him, I was like, you know what? He probably gets asked about that one thing. I'm sure he gets a lot of interviews and people are like talking about Star Trek and all that's all. Yeah. So like from the beginning, when I started this, I always thought people appreciated like almost remembering the beginning, because people don't really talk about the beginnings too much. It's always like, hey, let's talk about the year you hit 60 home runs or your greatest year. It's like, what about the other years, the early years when you were just like, barely making the team, or, just getting started in the industry? So I'm happy we connected, because what an amazing story just to get to that first credit that you were a Green Beret. Like that's what a direction,
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah, I'll be 70 in May, and I'm in my 4th week of P90X right now. So
you kicked my ass, Eric. I know you would.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Man.
And
I really appreciate it.
No problem, man.
All right, buddy.
Have a great rest of your day.
Wasn't Eric amazing? Like mind-blowing that I didn't ask that Spielberg question earlier in the conversation, but the fact that it was like, oh yeah, he actually had a part in me getting Johnny 5. I was like, what? So his old man works for Steven Spielberg's old man, and then they he gets him the job, sort of, which is puts his recommendation in there. Sure, it didn't hurt having Steven Spielberg recommend you from seeing Pal. So really cool. Thank you, Eric. Again, your homework, class of 1999, free on YouTube. Got the cast alone. It gets me excited. I remember when I was talking to Patrick Kilpatrick, I watched this. That was like 4 years ago. So I'm excited to dive in again. So don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast. Follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And don't forget to check out our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.